Hi, Denver Startup Week. I'm Eric Matisik, President and CEO of Highwing and co-founder of Denver Startup Week. Denver Startup Week is the largest free entrepreneurial event in the world, and it's only possible thanks to the support of our awesome sponsor. We have nearly 40 sponsor companies who contribute to make DSW a reality. Let's show our love for these companies today and all week long. Thanks to our title sponsors, the Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Zero, and our track sponsors who help make the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 and Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Health, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline and event sponsors are bringing you inspiration from around the country. Thank you to Wix, Kinzon, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now, let's get started.
The Public Works is a Denver, Colorado-based design, fabrication, and multimedia marketing firm that allows your company to craft an authentic presence to your target audience. For the past 15 years, the Public Works media team has been telling stories with words, pictures, and films. Our unique approach to brand storytelling allows us to get strong reactions and results from our content. We work in experienced and nimble teams with our crew of producers, directors, and cinematographers that all have first-hand experience and international presence. We are fortunate to have amazing clients that allow us to get wherever we need to go with the right tools for the highest production value. Lots of people can take a pretty picture. Just look at Instagram. While we believe our images speak for themselves, what really sets us apart is our decades of experience, our network, and our ability to make shit happen when it counts. We love bringing unexpected partners together to create added value for everyone. And most of all, we love when we finish a job confident that we've not only executed, but elevated the end product, and we know that everyone involved enjoyed the process. Our company was founded on the idea that life is about learning and teaching through every experience. We apply a strict discipline of work hard, play hard, and make great fucking work. We amplify awesome. We surround ourselves with the best and feed off of infectious innovation, ideas, collaboration, and building long-term friendships and partnerships. Contact us anytime for a meeting at our office, golf course, or on the chairlift.
Am I on?
Yep, you're good.
Yes, I am. Hey everyone, I'm Castle, Denver Startup Week Design Track Chair for my 9th year. Welcome to the first ever virtual and global Denver Startup Week. Just want to double thank our sponsors, especially the Design Track sponsor, the Public Works and Battery 621. They're awesome. They're here doing live filming all week. They do fabrication, video, just really cool guys we love so much. Couple of housekeeping things. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, grow, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, sexual orientation, and any combination of those identities. It's very important to us here that everyone feels welcome, everyone feels safe, and that everyone is heard and represented. Up next on the design track real quick, 9 a.m. we have Designing Tomorrow's Community Spaces with Battery 621 and the Public Works. 10 a.m. we have a Legal 101 for the Creative Workforce panel. And that will be shot live here in our studio. So I'm here to introduce Trisha Black. Her session is Streaming First, Cloud Second Design, Leveraging Data for Artificial Intelligence. She's the manager of Analyst Relations and Strategy at IBM. So We're really excited to have someone so smart here with us. And it's artificial that I'm up this early. So I'd only be up this early for Trisha and her exciting session. And I see there's like 32 of you guys on, which is really cool for 8 in the morning. So I'm gonna pass it over to Trisha, who, and then we'll do a Q&A after, so stick around for that. Okay, thanks.
Well, good morning. I actually wanted to play a recorded session, but I don't know if you have that prepared. Is that something we can go live with?
I think we are playing that video.
Oh, it's already
Hopefully
on.
the quality is good. Thanks everyone for your patience. It looks like, yeah, we're pulling that up. You're in Denver, Trisha.
Yes, I actually am. I think Denver is the best place to be right now. Lots of great outdoors. So during the session, while we're waiting for the audio to play the recording, I just wanted to set it up. So after the recorded session, I will ask some questions. Those questions, if you're comfortable to go live, I think we have somebody in the control center who can help us. If not, I'll just, go over those. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the content. It is something that I prepared for the first time, so bear with me.
Thanks for waiting, everyone. Okay, what else can we talk about? Anyone have any questions out there before we get started?
I can share the recording on my end. Would that be
Yeah,
helpful?
okay, go for it.
Okay.
We're all just figuring this out, you guys. Sometimes it goes perfectly, sometimes it doesn't. Thanks for your patience. Make sure to share sound, Trisha, to share computer.
I did.
Sound. Okay, cool.
Can you hear it?
Not yet. Not hearing it.
Okay, well, I guess I can just present live. Would that be okay?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. It's not Trisha, it's us.
Well, so here we go. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. So you
I
all
like
saw
this. I like this better.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Castle.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. I am Trisha Black. I live in Colorado, but I am a Colorado native. Started my career at the Dorothy P. and Richard P. Simmons Center for Interstitial Lung Disease. This is an institute at the University of Pittsburgh, and I work with patients that had a rare disease. So medical research was really important because this was the patient's only opportunity to receive care with advanced medical practices. I help with coordinating research and then became a data manager. As a data manager, I realized I lacked some necessary skills and applied to Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon has a program that focuses on unstructured data. So at the Language Technologies Institute, I was enrolled into the master's program. In the master's program, I wanted to learn more about how to automate any type of information that would help support some sort of question and answer system, what we know as Watson today. And the Watson program was actually created in conjunction with the Carnegie Mellon Language Technologies Institute. After graduating, I became a consultant on digital transformation projects. And I lived in New York City, but I traveled a lot and helped companies that were in the pharma and finance domain to ensure their data transformation or digital transformation projects had a great data flow. Now that I'm at IBM, I work with analysts and IBM executives in the hybrid data management portfolio program within data and AI. So hybrid data management is a long phrase for something that generally describes your data on-prem or in the cloud. All right, so I'm setting it up with some questions. What are analytics and AI workloads you are currently running? What data do you work with today? What kind of data are you interested in using? Excuse me, I forgot the word you. And what is an example of an ideal analytics program that you think would apply to that concept of ideal analytics? Now, I'd like to talk to you about why I think I'm here today. My parents are entrepreneurs. I am the daughter of entrepreneurs that started their business actually in the 1980s. I wasn't born until a little later, and my parents started working with a record-keeping system that was designed by a 13-year-old. Now, this 13-year-old had a bright future ahead of him, but he didn't know at the time. And he created documentation for my parents, who do not have an undergraduate degree, to understand how to operate. Now, I'd like to highlight some details in this documentation here. It's very strict instructions. And then it says, if it yet does not work, call John for help. So it had this idea that the human had to operate the system. And this was not necessarily a novel idea at the time. It was very pragmatic. And today, we like to talk to a human when our system isn't working, but sometimes we aren't able to. John Heinlein, he was the creator of this program at the age of 13. And today he is chief of staff to the CEO at ARM Holdings. And very excited to give him credit to his work back in the 1980s. But it was just a record-keeping system. So this data was stored primarily without much without much context. So it was used for historical purposes. It wasn't frequently referenced, and it wasn't actionable. This information had, as I said, minimal context, meaning my parents didn't necessarily use it to help them decide on how to order products for their customers based on seasonality. So I'm going to go into detail about why these storage systems today have evolved, but they kind of hinder our idea of an AI system and how it can be successful. The evolution into the cloud has been something that started in the 1960s, and it's a concept based on network-based computing. In 1982, IBM created the Ethernet adapter card for a PC. And this was to help make your information transfer quickly. Now, in 2006, we have the concept of cloud computing as a term. And what cloud computing service models do is provide data and architecture on servers. And it's pretty much the same concept since the 1960s, but we've been able to interact with it more efficiently today. And because of that, there's a price to it. We can interact with the cloud pretty easily at a cost. So all the data that you're storing, it's going to double in the next 2 years. Gartner predicts that a $39.5 billion market in 2019 will be $63 billion in 2021. So when you think of the cloud and you think of storing your data, it makes sense. Why not just store all your data in the cloud? Well, there are a lot of reasons for that, and I'll discuss it later. When you decide to put all your data in the cloud for an AI project, it doesn't seem like that would be an issue. But I will share why AI projects fail. And yes, the cloud is not the main issue. Only 10% of organizations claim that 75% of AI projects succeed from proof of concept to production. One of the main reasons is lack of clear outcomes, underestimating complexity or their resources, and then focusing on cost cutting versus growth-oriented projects. So you don't see the cloud as the main issue why an AI project fails. I'm going to talk about a relatable issue. Sometimes we hoard our things, and similarly, we may hoard our data. So I am very passionate about Marie Kondo's concept, and she discusses how to tidy. I wanted to look into the cost of clutter. Now, the cost of clutter for an average home is estimated to be $15 per year for each square foot. So that's estimated for a 2,000 square foot home for $300,000. The time and maintenance is approximately $40 per hour. The monthly storage fees are approximately $90 per month. And then you have the cost of moving the clutter and the cost of cleaning it out, and that is approximately $1 per pound to move. As I mentioned, I am very passionate about Marie Kondo and the way that she describes how you need to commit yourself to tidying up, not just sweeping away the dirt, but actually moving objects and putting them away to make sure that they have a home. Now, she also provides this idea for imagining your ideal lifestyle. This means that you don't consider what you have today, but what you want in the future. She proclaims that you need to finish discarding first. So you bring all of your items out into a pile and you realize how much you have that you don't necessarily need, and to discard what you don't need in order to accomplish your ideal lifestyle. Now, I'm going to share with you her fourth point, which will be the climax of this presentation when I get a little bit further ahead. So tidying by category and not by location. When she describes this, she has the idea that we need to become more efficient in our decision-making process to discard items. So following the right order is necessary. Now, the categories that she shows here, clothes, books, papers, kimono is somewhat miscellaneous items, and then your sentimental items, like your pictures. Those sentimental items are hard to get rid of because you have an attachment to them. And by going through the categories in the right order, you become more efficient in your decision-making. So you need to ask yourself what sparks joy. Now I'm going to shift this idea, the basic rules of tidying up to data. Just like Marie's concept for tidying up your home, tidying up data is more important than cleansing it. You want to create data objects and put them away. You may have a data architecture that you've had for years, and sometimes it's something that you know is there, but you've never interacted with it. So hoarding data doesn't necessarily mean that your AI project will succeed. When you create a data object versus cleansing it, it improves the evolution of your data, meaning it becomes more resourceful in terms of streaming your information for new AI projects. So what we've heard many times in the data community, and that our new viewers today might not have heard of, is garbage in equals garbage out. Today, I'm pointing out that garbage in plus garbage out can cost you a lot for an AI program. Not only time and money, but your reputation. So Marie Kondo says, tidying up is not a quick fix or a once in a while approach. It's a commitment. Now, imagine how you would ideally like to use this data. As far back as 1880, it took 8 years to cleanse the census data. Not cleanse it, but rather process it and utilize it. It was projected that in 1890, the census data would take 10 years to process. So in 1881, Herman designed a machine that reduced the effort from 10 years to 3 months. He envisioned that reducing time would become a better option than to continue what we already know today. So today, if we're thinking about our ideal lifestyle with data, we're always overwhelmed by the concept of the big data issue. We have velocity of data, the volume of data, the variety of data. So not only that, but today we also are familiar with data is everywhere. Now this concept is data at the edge, IoT, the information of things. You get your information from your laptop. This is a starting point, right? Now we can get information received from into our cars. We get information from our phone, our smartwatch, a drone, a camera. On my GoPro, I can stream to social media if I want. And now we have sensors that utilize information in order to give us real-time feedback. So when we think of our ideal lifestyle with data, we need to consider how we can choose the appropriate data for our ideal analytics for real-time intelligence. Now I'm going to propose a scenario. When Marie Kondo proposed finish discarding first, she didn't think in terms of data. She thought in terms of objects. Now with data, we also have objects. We store data in the cloud, on our data centers, and then it's processed. But we don't always know what data we're processing. So it requires some sort of investigation. And that investigation process for a data scientist takes a long time. So whenever you start thinking about your ideal analytics scenario, from the very beginning, decide what information you do need and what information you do not need. For instance, when we receive temperature information to our phone for, say, a scenario, I'm proposing my ideal analytics scenario of going to the slopes on a powder day. So all I need is cold weather data to inform me if the roads are clear. So we process the information that we need and we discard the information that we don't need. If it's 90 degrees, we don't need an alert. So the system takes in the cold weather input and then it indicates to gather information from the road, say image data, and then it processes whether or not the traffic is good, whether the conditions are good. Do I need to have a vehicle that has the appropriate tires? So this would hopefully be a situation that we can create our streaming analytics program into the cloud and then divulge the appropriate ideal analytics scenario into an AI application. The basic rule for tidying data to tidy by category and not by location is actually a little less complex than what Marie Kondo proposes. Now, this is an evolving idea that I would happily be challenged on, but I think it only requires two categories. Generally speaking, data and the system. I will go into a little detail right now to somewhat make the complicated situation of not focusing on location, because it is something that's evolving. And if we decide to focus on location, then it overcomplicates the situation. So tidying by category data, the data and the system helps resolve that over complexity of designing your AI program. When we look at a house and we look at the different types of places where our storage of items are, for instance, there may be multiple coats and multiple closets. What Marie Kondo suggests is putting all the coats out in the front so that you know whether or not you need two coats. Now, these multiple locations can overcomplicate your situation for tidying up, which is a common mistake. So not looking at the location, but the item helps you. What we are seeing in the cloud today is that there's an evolution, and the distributed cloud will hopefully solve the issues of the complexity of storing data from your cloud, and your storage systems on premises. The distributed cloud is when the cloud service provider takes full responsibility for hardware management and maintenance. But today we have this concept where we need to manage our data in various locations. And I won't go into too much detail explaining this, but these locations provide you with some reassurance that you can access your information from anywhere, but it doesn't always lend itself to reducing complexity of designing your AI program. So let's reduce the complexity of designing an AI program with an effective information architecture. As I mentioned before, data and systems are the categories that I believe help you to design what you would like for your ideal analytics program. I'll describe some of the data here that you would necessarily look into what you already have and what you need. So similarly with Marie Kondo's suggestion of finding your ideal lifestyle, you need to decide what you don't want and what you do need. So the various examples of data here: user data, application data, middleware, network, operating systems, virtual infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and then additional data sources from the database itself, the business transactions and business service performance data, human resources, third-party feeds, and third-party list feeds. All this information is overwhelming, but as I mentioned, we are reducing the complexity by not focusing on the location. So let's go into the second category, our systems. Now, I'm going to introduce 3 systems, 2 of which you're probably familiar with. The first being the open loop. The open loop takes an input into your system and provides an output. Now, in the open loop, there may be an alert or a disturbance to the system, and in that way, you will receive your desired output. Now, this is a system that you might not be familiar with, the feed-forward control system. This measures one or more inputs of a process, calculates the required value of the other inputs, and then adjusts. When we think about a machine learning application, this is more or less an unsupervised program where we try to teach a system without giving it instructions immediately. So we provide some instruction, but we don't necessarily teach it immediately. You provide input. Say, for instance, you're in a home and the door is open. The input is the temperature information. And then in this feed-forward system, and the door is open, the thermostat would then know to adjust the temperature to make the warm at a normal temperate climate. And so that is the output of the system. I will go into a little bit more detail with the feedback control system. This is a closed loop system, another system you're familiar with, I'm sure. Whenever we think about recommendation systems, we train our models, and this is called a supervised machine learning model. Meaning, similarly on a recommendation system like Netflix, what we do is Netflix receives information from us, what are we watching? And that is the output of the system. Now, Netflix knows what you like and informs the system to provide you with an alert or say a movie or another series to binge watch. So as I went through those categories, what you might not know in these AI programs is that each of these systems follows a process. Whenever you have some sort of data that needs to be collected, it is a part of the whole AI program. So what I'm describing here is the process for creating the AI program with your categories of data in the system in mind. As you collect data, the system has to be informed and the data is organized. So the data being organized is somewhat of an auditing process. You want to unify your data. You want to make sure that the data has some sort of meaning the metadata within your data has some actionable input to your overall ideal analytics program. Now, this metadata that is organized will then inform the system, and you can analyze the information. Is it correct? Is it incorrect? If it isn't correct, then you need to reevaluate the process. If it is correct, then you can infuse it. So this step forward into an AI program is the order in which you can process your information to effectively deliver a design that helps you with real-time insights or real-time intelligence. I'm very passionate about this topic because the fifth rule of tidying data, does it actually improve your life? So let's go back to the scenario of going to the slopes on a powder day. We are collecting our information in the cloud, but we're also collecting the information at the edge. When the information is in the phone, when it's cold, and when the data from the, say, cameras on the road are collected, they are then organized and processed. And when you are able to organize and process them, you will be able to analyze. So as I mentioned, those three steps, the collect, organize, and analyze steps of the ladder, are able to be somewhat of an auditing system for you. You don't want to infuse this type of process into your overall AI application until you know it is processing correctly. Only then will you infuse it into your AI application. And again, after you do infuse this information, you still need to audit the process. Is it performing as you would expect? If the behavior isn't correct, then you need to reevaluate and decide, are your streaming information resources doing what you need? Is the coat in your closet still functional, or do you need to throw it away because you've used it too much? This data, more than likely, may need to be changed. Maybe there's something that you can do to improve it. So the last question, or excuse me, the last rule is to ask yourself, does it spark joy? And in terms of the basic rules for tidying data, we need to know, does it reduce time and increase value? I've definitely become more familiar with data, but I've also become more familiar with how AI applications are failing because we don't always understand how to measure whether or not it reduces time, whether or not it increases value. So measuring these two criteria helps you to succeed with your AI application. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for your attention. And thank you to the Denver Startup Week organizers. This is my 4th year at Denver Startup Week. I still feel the same energy I do whenever I'm at an actual event. So thank you for providing that type of environment for us in these times when we are not certain whether or not we should be together. So I will take your questions now.
Well, we're hoping.
Are there still questions?
Hey, this is Castle back on, and I'm with my co-chair, Brian Corrigan. He'll also be facilitating any Q&A. Who has questions? Well, I learned a lot that I need to take home to my house and clean and organize, and I'll do that after Startup Week.
Okay, great. I think it's definitely a daunting process.
Oh, I can't. I'm a baby hoarder of my data. I have everything from the last, everything I've ever done for 15 years at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think in general, it definitely helps to start small. And, the categories are helpful, but just starting small is also an easy way to get started.
Yeah, baby steps. Okay, so it looks like we have a question. So from Kelly, I use Pluralsight to learn development skills. Can you suggest other sources, development skills for AI?
Did she say Pluralsight?
Pluralsight.
I haven't heard of that one, but you probably heard of Andrew NG. He has a newsletter called The Batch. And Andrew, he is a expert in the field of machine learning. He started Coursera. And the newsletter that I received from him is definitely up to date. And you know, there's a lot of good resources, but keeping yourself up to date is obviously a struggle. But going to the leaders in the field is a useful tool.
Hey everyone. All right, I am now taking over the question part.
Hi, Frank.
Any questions?
So I think there was a request for a little bit of a clarification. You said Andrew something, Trisha?
Yes, Andrew, and then his last name spelled NG. Ning. I don't know how to pronounce it appropriately.
All right. It looks like we have another one here. So I'm an old school data head, flat files and simple joins and SQL select statements. How may I leverage where I am into a better understanding of AI and making it work in my work as a cost accountant?
Yeah, so I actually started with SQL. In my role as a data manager, I decided to learn ML programs through Andrew Ng's Coursera machine learning program. But what I found useful is the tool Weka. It's a free interface to upload your data. And when you create your first machine learning program, it's not as complicated as, say, what people tell you. So Weka is spelled W-E-K-A. I believe it's still out there, and it's like a GUI. There's other tools today like TensorFlow that have a great documentation and can walk you through.
Great. Any other questions?
Is anybody curious about the cloud and some of the different types of cloud architecture?
Yeah, I say go for it. I am.
Okay, I'll go back to the slide.
Okay.
So actually just last night, there was an update on the distributed cloud by Gartner, and it was informative in a way to help maybe guide anybody that is designing a cloud program. So what we have today is a multi-cloud scenario, so cloud to cloud. And then if you think of the term hybrid cloud, it sounds similar to multi-cloud, but it's actually different. So a hybrid cloud actually focuses on your on-prem to your public cloud storage, or your private cloud, which is generally speaking an on-prem cloud, and it connects to your public cloud storage. So that's what hybrid cloud is. And then you have the multi-hybrid cloud. So when you have two public clouds and say a private cloud or your on-prem solution, that helps you to connect with various resources. And today in the business world, you are commonly using something of this type of architecture, and the intercloud, which is a public cloud connection to a third-party tool like, say, Salesforce. That is like a SaaS program.
Great.
So,
well,
yeah.
We
Go
have
ahead.
one more question here. Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. What do you use to integrate AI models into your CRM tools?
Well, I was using Salesforce, so integrating, for instance, Salesforce, we were generally giving instructions to automate I guess it was more or less a call center program. So trying to understand when calls were more frequent and trying to ensure that we had the right staff. So some of these SaaS tools, like I mentioned, Salesforce, have the capability of enabling you to design them. Haven't been using them recently. And I think it's important not to constrain yourself to those CRM tools. I think trying to make your own tool if they have limitations in their function is a good way to go.
Great. We have another question. Where do you suggest starting for those of us that know ML pretty well, but are new at using cloud tech?
Yeah, that's another technical question. I was in the design track because I didn't want to get too technical. But yeah, I think these questions are really useful. Use question forums like Quora to get most expert opinion in terms of relevant ways to do this. What I was trying to work in the cloud, I actually started by joining a course on Coursera called Startup Engineering. It's no longer on there. And it was led by a founder of a reputable company, which is escaping my mind right now. But it was called Startup Engineering. And he was able to teach me how to program cloud technology for the course. And it was a lot of scripting, to be honest. And the reason why I introduced this concept today is because this nature of the distributed cloud is what you should be looking into, and it's an evolving topic. So the distributed cloud is supposedly a solution to the flop of the private cloud. So the private cloud, what we know, is somewhat like an on-prem solution that companies like CSP companies thought would solve for the processing of data faster on site. They actually felt like this didn't create the most economic solution for their clients. So now we have the distributed cloud, and eventually communities will be able to tap into those private clouds and use those resources. So my long answer is try to go to Quora, ask questions about the distributed cloud, because that's the future. Okay, so this was actually just brought up last night in the description of the distributed cloud. What they meant is that when customers were asking about private cloud and how to protect their data, this was a novel idea to ensure they could have the same talent that was working on public cloud. So they wanted to have the talent of developers on the public cloud also create programs on site. And the issue with the private cloud, I suppose, is an economic issue. And that's why the distributed cloud will solve that problem. I just learned about that last night, so I apologize for not having enough information.
You sold me. Any other questions?
I was starting to walk up, but then I was...
The audience is dwindling. I think they're going to their next sessions.
Okay. Oh, we have one more. Yeah, we have one more.
Okay.
You talked about the doubling of the amount of data in the cloud in 2 years. What will
Yeah.
be the main driver of that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the idea that using data that you may not necessarily need, meaning you're not optimizing for your programs. So I gave the simple solution of only collecting cold weather data, right, and not storing it. I think some nascent developers or maybe, companies that think they need data to keep for regulatory purposes because of, old school technology standards, may be a driver for that too. But I think it's the first one, just making sure that you're not keeping data that you don't need. But of course, if you do need that data, I'm sorry, it's kind of like throwing out one of those sentimental pictures you still had. So just keeping in mind that the growth of our data in the cloud is also a result of, the evolution of processing information. So yeah, companies are becoming more confident in storing data in the cloud. And I think that is a huge cost whenever they have to change from their current application or current on storage system. And then they're trying to create it in the cloud.
Awesome. And then there's another question here from Rachel asking if you'd be up for connecting outside of the session.
Yeah.
Her team seeks clarity about how data science teams operate, and she doesn't really know how else to get her request to you.
Oh yeah, there's my information.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to connect about data science. And in general, it's great to connect with people in Denver. So if you're not in Denver, and you can't meet up in person, you can always reach me on LinkedIn. That would be the best.
Awesome. Well, should we wrap it up then?
Sure. Have a
Okay.
great startup week. You're in the middle of it. It's flying by.
Well, thank you so much, Trisha, for bringing your talent to Denver Startup Week and for all the attendees who participated today. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much.
Have a great startup week. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.